So, welcome, Doro, welcome, everyone.
Welcome. Thanks for being here. Thanks, Devavan, for joining here together.
We're
I'm
starting
so
in a slow
excited.
pace, no?
Huh?
Uh, we are starting in a slow pace, and just take it easy. It is considered as a kickoff, as an invitation uh, to invite to walk with us to an entrance to a new you, how it was given. And the title of this series will be Getting on Board with the Course in Miracles. Well, let's share first maybe what ideas we have with getting on board with the Course in Miracles. What do you think, Tara?
Yeah, for me, it's always the most important, like the first words, even in the introduction. Um, and it's just for me one of the most amazing and most just um, important quote, which says, "This course can therefore be summed up very simply in this way. Nothing real can be threatened. Nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God."
Yeah, and of course, as course students and course teachers, we know that very well, no? But if we are looking from a perspective that we would come now into this room and we have never heard about A Course in Miracles, have not the book, have nothing, like, and there are two guys who wanna uh, propose, because of course we are proposing, hey, also work this course, study it, practice it, and extend what your experience is of it. No? And what would be the reason really to listen to such a podcast, or what would be the reason to feel an energy, to get motivated, to get it on with, um, let's say, looking up a website, or listening to such an introduction as you just mentioned it, which is just incredible. No? And of course, we have to look each and every one where are we standing in our own experience right now, and then also what have we used till this very moment for this experience, for this recognition. And from there, I would also say we have something to share what changed in us by accepting a new perspective, a new directive, a new purpose in our life. Because my starting point is for sure one of admitting that I started recognize the pain. I started recognize separation from my loved ones. I started recognize attack thoughts from my own mind and being attacked. And I started recognizing that it kind of felt like being out of hand, being out of control. And I wouldn't be able to either control it or to solve it as the recognized problem. And that would be for me, in sum, for sure, the motivating agent of saying, well, give me anything in order to have a different and new perspective. Can you share a little bit also from your side what that was or is for you?
Yeah, I mean, I remember myself like questioning a lot already when I was a little child, maybe five. I already remember. And my mom is like called me already in this time like the little philosopher, because I always ask these questions. And so like I can just remember my whole life I was a seeker. And when I finished my studies, just had my diploma in my pocket, and I was like asking myself, okay, so now what do I have more than before my studies. And I really didn't know. And this was exactly the time when A Course in Miracles came to me. So it's always the perfect time. I guess everyone is like having a kind of a similar experience. So yeah, for me, it's really that I feel much more peace, much more love, and all these answers are answered. And all these questions are answered now. And it's really just recognizing it again and again, more and more who I am. Yeah, what's the meaning of life was one of the main questions I always ask. Now it's just I feel so, it feels just so true. And yeah, this is for me the meaning of life, is to relearn what I learned here, and yeah, always just remember that I'm a son of God, that I'm a child of God, and I'm just love, and everything is within me. And yeah, really just to learn and learn this together with you. Yeah, and just let it extend to because like, and yesterday there was like a very nice picture I had in my mind, or like a giving me the example. There's a hall of mirrors. This world is like a hall of mirrors, and everyone is just my projection. And I just love this. And sometimes it's, it's like going in this size, or it's kind of stretching in weird ways, but it's all just me. There's no one else here. So yeah, like this is maybe how I want to start. And so it's just an amazing journey now.
I mean, with both, our native language is German, like you're from Germany, I'm from Austria. And in German, that's what we try here to present and to demonstrate from our own experience. A Course in Miracles is in German translated. There is a German translation, of course, because we're considering that book of close to 1,400 pages, divided in the three parts: the textbook as the theoretical foundation, the workbook with a daily lesson to not just study, but really to start practicing, and then the manual for teachers, the teacher's manual for solving last questions, you could say, and that a healer, a teacher has, and getting really also into an experience of that guidance that we call the brother, the representative of that light source, we could say, is really next to us and walking with us. And in German, the course, a course in miracles, is called ein Kurs in Wundern. And I remember very well when I heard it for the first time, as so many others would say, ja, ich wundere mich ja schon, which means I'm already wondering about something, or I'm guessing, that is kind of jokingly used still by mostly by associations who want to defend themselves against the message and don't really want to accept what a miracle offers as an expression of love, né? And as an insertion from out of time, as a complete renewal and replacement of one's own thought system. And so, what I also want to mention at that point is that we are talking here about having given place or invited. I have invited a solution or a guidance, not from this world anymore. I recognized very well that any solution coming from this world would be the same as me applying again a solution from the past. And that perspective of giving me allowance in my own mind to not be afraid and invite and let a solution come to me from out of time, how I called it at that time and still calling it, which means from the divine source of myself, from God Himself or from the mind of God. And that, of course, was only possible by, by giving me also an allowance uh, of remembrance, what that really is, that I already have an experience. Ne? And having an experience means having an experience of God, having experience of perfection, of wholeness, having an experience of being one with you, with everyone, with everything. And without a touch of such an experience, I think a mind, a conceptual mind, has lots and lots of trouble, maybe even impossible to invite such a message in, which is not of a source, of a worldly source, and maybe even is in complete denial to it or defense when it comes. No? Like for me, it was also it presented itself, but at that time when it presented itself, I was with the Eastern masters and Eastern teaching. I did recognize immediately that the source of pure Christ mind, of Jesus Christ resurrected, is a true one. I could feel that and sense that and literally feel it out of every sentence that was the initial contact with the Course in Miracles. But to really accept it as a guideline for myself of saying, okay, now I'm gonna be willing to be anew shown through, because of course it has its vernacular, which is a Christian language, né? And I was kind of done with Christianity, né? Was only possible, and I was only able to make that step by through also an immediate, I would say, encounter with a brother who was a teacher and representative of this course, and also me recognizing that what I was teaching at that time, Eastern Advaita teaching, that there's more for me offered in order to open my mind to a reasonable thinking. And that is a point that needs for sure, and we will probably reflect that for sure, because reasonable thinking is not a logical thinking that the ego does, where here's my cause idea, and here I'm going to think it to a connection with an effect. But it is a literally being in that holy mind of myself, in that Holy Spirit as it is expressed, and that connection with the mind of God, an allowance to let it come through, to become a vessel and a channel literally from that source. And that thinking without needing to think about something, that is what he calls as reason in A Course in Miracles. And so this perspective where we are coming from to have really given place in our mind for such a message is of course a personal experience, but somehow we were done with something, as right now Doro is going to be kicked out with her internet connection, and instead of just turning it over to her microphone, I have to continue filling in the space. I don't have to continue filling in the space because he will fill in the space. But I think those are parts we normally don't include in our teachings, né? That how we really came about the message and how we really recognize the message as one from out of time, and sharing and being aware that it has to be one of being also finished with how we how we were going along up to this point. Are you having connection again, Tara? It looks like it's still frozen, right? The image. Yeah, and that also, even if, there's uh, the communication here in time space that isn't working, because that was, of course, part of the recognition of the problem. Yeah? As it looks like, okay, here is now a communication problem, and it is, like that brought me closer to, okay, where can I find a source or an offering, and that will show me a communication that doesn't cut off, né? Or a communication that is not subject to a cut off, or to an experience of, okay, we were just talking so nicely and now it's over, né? And our relationship is over, and I have to feel the pain of being abandoned, or feel the pain of being kicked out. This is the kick off for getting on board Sibelius, and not a kick out. So, yeah, it's really interesting. Okay,
Yeah.
we're hearing you now. Now you're there again, Dora.
Yeah, I hope it will be a little bit stable. It's always this time here. I live in Sinai in Egypt, so it's always around this time. It's a little bit unstable internet. Sometimes more, sometimes less. But yeah, I'm here. Yeah. So yeah, you scratched like a lot of topics, and yeah, I really always feel like the most important thing is to really to surrender to who I am, to decide again where my source is, that I want to follow, that I want to, yeah, really surrender, and always going beyond, or I don't put attention anymore to this body, to this personality, to yeah, my thoughts. I feel this is something very important. And yeah, not to judge. I mean, these are like, and this is something, it's not easy at all, because it's so, we're so trained to judge, to say this is good, this is bad, this is right, this is wrong, and always like stepping out of the kind of the situation, out of my thought system, realizing I'm not these thoughts, I'm not this body, I'm not this personality. Yeah, to really recognize where I belong. And I feel this is so powerful, and such an amazing journey, such an exciting journey, to walk through, and to always just let go of everything I feel I want, like from all these needs, thoughts, I like preferences, and yeah, and if I always recognize God really just wants my my joy, my peace, my freedom. It makes it much easier just to connect with him again.
Mhm.
And yeah, and it's really a process of trust, like building trust. And it's just he's just so gentle
Yeah.
with
And we haven't even
us,
mentioned
so
yet.
so patient. We cannot even imagine.
Yeah.
I feel.
And we haven't even mentioned yet
Mhm.
really with whom we making that contact in order to experience that, né? Because at some point we don't want to make it really a Christian doctrine, né? But it is Jesus Christ resurrected, né? It is the Christ mind within ourselves with whom we make that contact and come to that experience you're talking about. And so, of course, this message that we call A Course in Miracles is, and when I mentioned it, that it is really a source from out of time, it has been received by mind in contact with that source, with that mind from out of time. And describe those who study and know the course know is Helen Schackman, but those who are new might know about that, no? That it has been channeled in that sense. No? It has been asked for. She wanted to make to open up her mind to be a messenger and to be used for an extension of something important for the whole humankind. But there was also so much um, conflict in the work situation where she found herself at Columbia University in New York, that with her co-worker, who is the co-author of the course, also you could say the very important person that brought it even into written words, Bill Tedford, né? And they worked together, and uh, and at some point, Bill got really in his mind, there must be another way between us and in the department and how we work here and what we are doing, because everything was very worldly set and with a lot of pressure. And Helen responded to that positively and said, yes, me too. And I'm with you. And I'm willing to go along with that. If there is another way, let's invite that in. And it took I think a couple of months or half a year. And then
Mm.
in Helen's mind, a voice started. It wasn't even a voice that she said was like what you would hear like words. It was like an image, she said. It was like a picture of words that how she heard the voice speaking to her. And it started out, this is A Course in Miracles. Please take notes. Ne? And those are words that we find in the original version in the urtext and has been then edited out and starts out with that introduction that we will probably share in its entirety in a moment anyway. But we are utilizing here a teaching device, a tool that gives us in this main three parts, the textbook, the workbook, and the teacher's manual, a basis to connect our mind with the mind of Jesus Christ himself, or with, let's say, with our own Christ mind, with our own sanity that remembers who it is, who we are. No? And so, just from the history, for those who want to hear it, that first notes that Helen Schackman took, and she took it in shorthanded stenography, shorthanded, three-quarters of it started then in 1965. And for 7 years, until it was finished with the teacher's manual. And she herself, she was at the very beginning quite in resistance even to take those notes, and was questioning the voice and so on and so forth. There's a book also that describes the biography and that part. Uh, and and yet she was determined to do it. And there was a question later on where she asked Jesus, "Why me? Why did you choose me? I think I'm in resistance. I don't even like to hear that, and I probably will have real resistance to use it and to utilize it and to apply it." And the answer that came in into her mind from Jesus' mind was, "Because I know you will do it. I know you do it." That she had a determination and dedication. What she started out, she did finish, no matter how strong the resistance came up in the mind. And so she went through that for 7 years, and already in the beginning, Bill Tedford started to transcribe it. And, we are talking here times where there were no computers with typewriter. No? And when they looked together at what came through, uh, they started realizing that there's really something given and something downloaded that is so immense that it has a worth continuing and focusing on that, and realizing that because especially in the original version, there's a lot of this personal connection that with their own storyline, how they lived into the day or what happened to them with persons that if you would read that, you would ask yourself, well, why do I need to read that? But we all have very similar experiences on our human level in our personal relationships, and therefore we just have to translate it. And those are versions. There is, for example, this Robert Barry complete and annotated edition, which has translated those directives given to Helen personally and to Bill, simply replaced with the second personal pronoun you, so that it can be referred to oneself easily.
Yeah, and this is something very important, even in my experience, that I had so much resistance. I remember even the first years. I mean, now I studied A Course in Miracles, I think around 15 years already, which is just a number, but at the same time, I feel, wow, seems like a long time. But yeah, what I remember is that it really is, yeah, that I had so much resistance that there should be a voice talking to me, and I couldn't believe that. But this is something like very important, that it is there, and I can really experience this, and it's so personal. It's really individual, that the Holy Spirit is it really uses my my, like, how to say, word, my language, even my voice. This is how it's written in the Course of Miracles, and is really working with my preferences, with my belief system. So yeah, and really like building a building. I mean, it's not really right because it's always there, but kind of yeah, there is this that I feel it has to yeah, to build a relationship, and that he really uses everything like individual, in very individual way. And this is so amazing, you know. It's really just picking up where I am in every moment, in every situation. And it's always so different than I expect. So this is why it's even very good always to let go of my expectations. Um, yeah, so I totally understand even Helen's way of like, there was so much resistance, and it was so surprising kind of that he always picked up in like where she stopped writing, like she and then there was a new situation and she went back uh to start writing again, or to continue writing. It just started exactly at this point. And I mean, this is something, it's a miracle. I mean, this is a very good example for what a miracle means.
Yeah, so you mean that she put down the pen and the next time she came back, maybe next day or further days,
Yeah,
the idea would continue. Ne? It became a
yeah,
continuation.
yeah.
Right, right. Yeah, that's definitely a demonstration of that it wasn't from her own conceptual thinking. Ne? And I mean, if we are in, of course, as we do, you know, to invite everyone to get on board with this masterpiece of thought form and thinking, literally. Ne? Of course, someone who maybe just wants to study it and has a look will get, especially in this first part in the textbook, probably a kind of a disappointment, né?
Mhm.
Because it is very difficult to understand if you're not coming from an experience. Né? If you
Mhm.
have that experience, everything is perfectly reasonable and understood. Né? But besides, it needs to be understood that this textbook is in most of the parts written in pentameter, it's called. That was the language at Shakespeare's time. So the
Mhm. Yeah.
sentences and the words are differently said, different words used also. And of course, the pentameter is a verse form. Ne? It's kind of a poetic expression. Ne?
Mhm.
And makes it, in that sense, not really uh, easier to understand. But a mind that is willing to go along and then starts also to accept that there's a directive given in the text towards a practice, and that will start in the second part with the workbook, with the lessons of the day. And to come through that practice to an experience of differently thinking and therefore differently perceiving oneself, the next one's, the entire world. And then latest at that point, it is realized, yes, there is really a greater thing going on with me and is changing me, the perspectives being undone, that how I was thinking previously, and there's a newness really coming into place and experienced. Maybe I want to share here some introductory words that are actually in the foreword in how Robert Barry, in the complete and annotated version, which is not completely the original Urtext version, but it is very close, has talked about that, introducing people to this course. And I think how the words are used is very nicely used. And he starts saying that the text is a masterpiece of spiritual thought. And as it guides us through hundreds of topics, it talks about anything and everything, the meanings we have assigned the word begin to fall away. The meaning starts to change. Ne? It starts to fall away, revealing a new meaning in everything. And this happens even on the level of language. The course uses familiar terms, but fills them with new meaning, making each term, and he calls it a microcosm of its thought system. And as a result, the text is not an easy read. To reap its rewards, we have to truly engage with it. No, there must be a focus, no, dedication also.
Yeah.
The course asks us to read its words slowly and carefully, thinking about what they mean. There's an enhancement of our own process of thinking about what we are reading, not waiting that the answer is given us, but to really make that process within our own minds. That's very important all through the course. No? It
Yeah.
asks us to take them personally and treat them as practical, as more than an intellectual game. If we will do this with the text, we will experience our old worldview being slowly dismantled and a new worldview arising in its place.
Oh, yeah, amazing. Thank you. Yeah, and it's really, I mean, this is something very important. Is like if I mean, even in German, but in English, it's the same. To read it with my ego, it doesn't work. Like mentally, like I can read it, but I will not understand anything. So it's really, I really need an open mind to understand, and then always asking for an experience. And even when I read a part and I think like and I understand something, and then I think like, but I read this before. And then I really can, like, it's so deep. It has such a depth of meaning that, or like it's really that it connects always exactly on my on my thought system, on like what I'm open to learn, that it just continues there. It doesn't matter what I read in the Course of Miracles. Is always just like as Helen experienced it when like she stopped writing and then she continued. This is exactly the same thing, and this is so incredible, I feel.
Yeah, it transfers. Ne? It transfers to any situation by itself.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
that
and it
is
even shows. Mm,
and that is really the evidence that it is for every part of our mind and not just for a specific part to understand. Ne?
yeah, yeah. What I wanted to say. Hmm. We'll come back when it's important. No,
Yeah.
yeah, it was exactly this. Yeah, it shows me that there is no coincidence. It's always, everything has a meaning. Everything is just set up like for a reason. Um, yeah, and this helps me as well to trust, to learn to follow this process of trust, and to dive deeper into this wisdom, gods, however you want to call it. Yeah, and this is just so helpful, and then it's what's written and what I understood like very late, doesn't matter. But that God really needs open minded students, like that we want to learn with joy, and not with how we taught in this world, like you have to learn this, doesn't matter if you're interested in that or not. That it's so important that we are open to learn and to even to relearn. I mean, this is like how A Course in Miracles is called, is even a mind training. So that's something very important as well. We really need to be open to relearn, to to forget or to let go of what we learned here, because it's really turning around, like the whole system, thought system in this world is totally upside down. What A Course in Miracles is teaching us.
Yeah, and that is an encouragement. Everyone who would like to start or follow that invitation to start with A Course in Miracles, to just let the emotion maybe of disappointment, or that is already the light basically increasing in the mind, né? And to just let it be, and just to continue and uh, giving it that energy and that focus. And I want to share a little bit more how he goes along, and shares then also about the value of the workbook. So the transition to the workbook, he says, still talking about the textbook, that this is only the beginning of the process, yet it is the foundation for all that follows. Yeah? And that is also what we are talking about. Né? All that follows is that real change of mind, is that new perspective, how to relate, how to think, how to feel, how to perceive the world, how to perceive oneself. Né? And it needs a basis, and that theoretical foundation is actually the textbook. I mean, I wouldn't really suggest to tell someone you have to read all the textbook first, but just have a look first at the miracles principles, and then as soon as possible, as you feel motivated, start with also practicing the lessons, that workbook. Or I personally have started with then really reading through the teacher's manual and receiving those short answers to those questions. And then he, of course, as we already mentioned, the workbook, the second volume, contains a lesson for each day, 365 lessons. And each lesson, we take a single course idea, practice it in a specified way throughout the day. So there are instructions given, either for sequences of lessons or in the lesson itself. And as we apply it to ourselves, to others, and to our daily situations and events, our perception shifts and we see with new eyes. That's very true. We actually start seeing everything with the inner eye. No? And we feel peace where before we felt anxiety and agitation. We ultimately learn to unfold each day in peace, so that we begin the day in a state of peace, renew that peace throughout the day, recover it when it is shaken, and end the day resting in that same peace. So it is obviously, this is a course in love. This is a course where love comes first. This is a course where love is, I become aware of that love coming from that inner peace. In service of this goal, the workbook teaches us a variety of different practices, including its own methods of meditation and prayer. The workbook then is really a training program in the course's system of spiritual practice. Even though it is designed as a one-year program, it is meant to ground in us a lifelong habit of spiritual practice, to usher us into a new internal way of life. So here's clearly we are aware of that, as I always call it, as long as I see anything, I perceive anything that is not permanent, that comes and goes, I I admit that I can still learn something. I can still change my perspective. I can still change my mind, how I perceive anything, because how I perceive anything has its basis in how I think in my own mind. And therefore, it's nowhere described to continue then with lesson number one again once the 365 lessons are done. But I did it, and I'm glad I did it. And the form of doing the lesson, of course, the practicing changes, but the content and the remembrance of the content, what it teaches, that is really what it is about. And that is also what where I see the importance of yeah, taking it exactly how Robert expressed it here as a lifelong habit, to think along and to let that come through. And practice to practice the practice of the workbook as the second phase in the courses is the second phase in the courses curriculum. Through practice, the same ideas that we learned in the text become more deeply internalized, he called it. They increasingly become the lens, like the lens in the eye through which we see and the source of what we feel. So the question is really, do I want to have a different source of how and what I feel? Do I want to look and see through a different lens uh, everything, how the world presents itself? And for those who want to have that, this is a real divine device given to a human mind, we could say. And yet that human mind converts to its own divine divinity and divine remembrance.
Yeah, I experienced it same way. I mean, I remember it was not easy at all in the beginning, like doing all of these lessons, and especially I remember, I mean, the like really sitting quietly and really following like exactly the guidance from every lesson. And yeah, it really needs discipline. At the same time, we always can be just gentle with ourselves and but there was always, yeah, this recognition. It has such a deep truth. There is such a deep wisdom in it. So just just keep going. And I remember it was hard. Like even wasn't used to doing meditation, um, sitting for 30 minutes. I mean, it doesn't start like this, but um, yeah, and I'm so happy that I went through all this. And but yeah, it's encouraging you all the time, because uh, there were always results of that I felt more peace, more love, more even understanding. Yeah, or this point of or aspects of I could really feel there is this truth and wisdom. And so it always catched me, just continuing, um, even when the stuff is coming up. And uh, yeah, and then there is yeah, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about forgiveness, because it's a very important part about Course in Miracles, or we just do it the next time.
Yeah,
um,
well, we can already
because
feel
it
that we
opens
need
like
quite some episodes.
yeah, and it opens kind of another huge topic, or like aspect of a
Well, it
Course in
is an
Miracles.
idea that goes from the beginning to the end of the course. Now, I could really say that the idea of forgiveness it's like entrenched in the course. No? Like the course wants to teach this change of perspective in order to come to a new and different experience of forgiveness. And of course, it is when we study along and especially practice along in the second part in the workbook, it becomes very clear that this is a completely new idea about forgiveness, presented, because
Yeah, yeah.
under the line he basically says you have to look through everything that you thought would need forgiveness or has attacked you or has done something to you, and you have to look into literally into the light of God and forget what you saw and let go of the meaning, how you held it in place. It really doesn't give much space into well, okay, we had this conflict, I'm gonna pardon you now and we'll be fine again, waiting for the next conflict. It doesn't give much space to
And
that.
it's kind of, yeah, and I mean the Bible, or like the general meaning, how we understand forgiveness is such a difference than A Course in Miracles is using this word. So like I always understood it's you know, I'm doing you a favor that I forgive you. You know, so like this is totally misunderstood. Because and I love this picture. I mean, like I'm thinking a lot of in pictures. So like I always love these visions or pictures having in my mind or showing up in my mind. So it's like removing a veil. You know, it's like everything I see, it's a projection of my own thought system. So, and removing this veil means just open up to have or to receive a new perception of truth, actually. Because I saw like my how I saw with like my body's eyes were totally wrong. So like just in maybe in a to make a short um, or to define quickly what A Course in Miracles says about forgiveness. So it's yeah.
Yeah, and it goes so much further to live up to true forgiveness because it does determine our personal relationships. It reflects completely into what type of relationship I have with anybody in the world, with those who come into my mind. Because if I live up to that new forgiveness, of course I cannot escape forgiving myself for what I see. No? And that is the sane basis
Yeah.
for a sane relationship. No? And also Robert Barry expresses that in that introduction in connection with the teacher's manual, because he talks there about how to really bring that into in how to share that. And he uses the word that the teacher's manual is written to those who have completed the text and workbook and will now extend the course's thought system. We were just mentioning an example. Forgiveness was an example. The course's thought system to others, how to extend it, how to share it with others. The manual focuses on two forms of this extension. The first form is quite interesting that he brings that in because here comes the connection then that, okay, we are talking about also accepting to become or be a teacher of God. It focuses on those two forms. The first form is that of the teacher of pupils, in which a more experienced student of the course plays the role of a mentor. It's we will hear in the course also like the companion, the brother that is allowed and invited in, skillfully guiding the learner or the pupil along the path of the course, right? So one who has undergone that experience, one who has practiced and applied these lessons, becomes automatically a mentor, a, a teacher, one who has the capacity to accompany and to guide the one who still wants to learn about it. And this is apparently the course's preferred method for teaching and learning its curriculum. But then there's another form, and he calls that is that of a healer. And the healer who goes to those with any issues, not just health issues, but the real health issue is the mental issue of seeing separation or suffering pain. And he goes to those with issues and shines the healing power. And here it is, the healing power of forgiveness into their minds, shares that in their mind, in the recognition that minds are joined, that minds are one. And extending to others can take many forms in addition to these, but its essence is simply the giving of love, usually in very ordinary ways. And from there it comes really, we are talked, and that is something that is a complete miracle and comes by the grace of God, that there comes an extension, a natural extension through that just wants to share the essence of what has been learned with every part of one's own being, of one's own mind.
Yeah, and here disappears Jesus as a great example for like exactly being a teacher of God. Healing, like talking to people, and yeah, and really blessing, healing, moving mountains, literally, walking over water, like all these things. So, and he's like the yeah, maybe the most famous example for a companion, someone who's always walking with us, holding my hand, guiding me, and I kind of can relax and follow him and let go of like my ideas, but really trusting him. Yeah, and I feel this is something very important, even my relationship to Jesus.
Yeah.
Um,
And then, I mean, it comes to my mind a very, also an example, a story that we all know from the Bible. No? When he came, or he was called for the woman who was charged for adultery, no? To be stoned. No? And what he did with the situation was actually pointing out, are you guys who judge and condemn her and want to stone her to death? Are you coming from a trained mind? Are you coming from a perspective of true forgiveness? Because you who are without sin cast the first stone. No? And so he made the literally the human mind aware, the conceptual mind aware. Hey, you better look at your own stuff and start changing your mind
or
about what you
yeah.
judge in the outside. And you cannot really do that by continuing to project it outside, the guilt, and punishing it there outside yourself. No, you have to really make the focus within your own mind and take that responsibility that what you see there outside, the sin of adultery is really literally your own adultery with God, and that's why you don't want to admit it, no? And continue in your way of separated thinking and leave it projected in with the woman. No? But it's, of course, there wouldn't be a reason to give a recent work like this. I mean, we are talking here now 1975, first publication. Well, we are, what is it now, close to 50 years ago. No? And obviously, for my understanding, it is obviously I haven't learned it with the word of the Bible as much as I appreciate, especially direct expressions that come from Jesus. I did need a work that really gets me into a mode of applying it. Nothing I see means anything
Mhm.
less number one. If I'm gonna go along and apply that
Yeah.
every day or throughout the day, I mean, that's why at the beginning it says only do it twice a day in the morning and in the evening, because you might get crazy of seeing really,
Yeah.
oh my God, I'm looking at something that is completely meaningless, that isn't real, that isn't really there. No? But that's needed, that practice is needed, that understanding, and that's where reasonability starts, because I'm thinking only with the spirit mind, with the Holy Spirit, when when I see that when I realize that what I placed there outside myself as the world and as all these bodies in the different appearances and forms is really of my own making, and is has been made up with the power of God's mind, but is really nothing. It's a complete reduction, and that's the reason why everything dies, why everything disappears, why everything turns to dust again. No? And that's why in a new opening, going along with this new teaching of our own Christ mind, we do see a light that shines eternally and reflects in everything that same light, no matter, like every grass blade that will dry up becomes that light of heaven, literally, no? Becomes that light of our wholeness.
Mhm.
That's amazing. No?
Mm. Yeah, so I can say A Course in Miracles, like, totally changed my life to more joy, to more peace, to more fulfillment, happiness. Yeah, really seeing light and love around me. And it really, like, I really feel like it saved my life at some point. And that I don't, yeah, I mean, um, so yeah, I'm so happy that I met the Course of Miracles, and with all these amazing people I met through Course of Miracles. And finally we're here, and I'm so happy to be here with you, and to teach and to learn with you, Devavan. Um, yeah, and
Yeah, and thank you for his presence in our joining,
yeah,
and
yeah.
everybody coming in, and there might more brothers become um, interested in it when we continue. We have basically a month's pause out of our traveling businesses, but we continue on the 3rd of January. Maybe we can open it up for those who would like to share something or ask something.
Mhm.
I would like to still finish one paragraph of Robert Perry's
Yeah.
introduction. where
Mhm.
he talks about what the final phase of the course's program is. And as we were already mentioning it, and yeah, and talking about it, he calls it extension. Extension is that third and final phase after the studying the text, the practicing with the lessons. It becomes now an extending. And here we take the same thought system we studied in the text and practiced in the workbook and extend it to others in the form of expressions of love, beautifully put together. And this benefits us as well as them, like it benefits everyone. For when we give away an idea like love, if we share an idea, we strengthen. We strengthen it. We strengthen its presence in our own minds. And that is probably the main reason or motivation why anybody would say, I'm gonna get it on now. I'm gonna get on board with the Course in Miracles because I want also to have love being strengthened in my own mind. And as the Course says, everything you teach, you are learning. Teach only love and learn that love is yours and you are love. And through our extension, the Course's thought system receives its final reinforcement in us so that it at last commands our total belief, our total faith in it. The new world of meaning that we first encountered in the text has now become the only meaning that we see in ourselves and in all things. And that would be the meaning of God, right? The meaning of eternal light shining in everything and as ourselves. So if anybody would like to still contribute something, feel free to open up your microphone. Everybody's supremely happy and peaceful.
Smile.
Yeah. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
That companionship. I'm gonna just share another song, okay? Get out of here. Thank you, Dora. Awesome.
Thank you.